California's prison system is facing or is under federal sanctions. How do you propose to help solve this situation? And we'll start with Adele.
California prisons are under sanction primarily because they're not providing health care to their inmates or adequate health care. They are overcrowded prisons, and the state has started releasing a lot of nonviolent offenders back into our community. Unfortunately, a lot of the truth of the matter is that California now spends more in prisons than we do in higher education. It's about 12% that we spend for corrections, and there is no rehabilitation from that point, compared to about, I think, 11% in higher education. At least that was the last budget. And so, definitely the way we've operated, California has determined sentencing in place that don't allow for judges for any leeway. So if you commit a crime or you're remorseful or whatnot, there's very narrow wiggle room for judges to be able to deviate from that. So you end up getting people going to prison at $50,000 a year what it costs to lock somebody up for minor possession charges, for example, when we can't even provide adequate books and supplies for our students, that we have to go out and ask the taxpayers. So our criminal justice system is out of whack with the realities of the state, and I think we really need to make some reforms. I'm excited about some of the initiatives on the ballot, particularly the 3 Strikes initiative, as well as the death penalty initiative that's on the ballot. We spent $180 million a year on the death penalty, and overall I think we've spent $1.2 billion since the death penalty came back into place, and we've executed, I think, 13 people. And certainly that's not a good resource of anyone's taxpayer dollars, in my opinion.
So one of these candidate forums back in, I think, the spring, one of the candidates said he was told that you can predict the prison population by looking at 3rd grade reading scores. So the way that you really need to attack the issue with prisons is to solve the problem with education. California was in the top 10 in education funding. When my kids went to school here in Alameda, they had year-round school. We had 20-to-1 class sizes. We didn't have any school closures. We didn't have any parcel taxes. And now our schools per pupil funding is 47th in the nation. Something's wrong there. We as a community have to band together and pass parcel taxes. And we have to decide what schools we're going to close. And we have to decide if teachers are going to be furloughed because we run out of money. So one of the big ways to solve that problem is first, fund education like it's supposed to be fun. Rob believes, and that's what he said in the lawsuit against Arnold Schwarzenegger, is education is a constitutional right, and the state needs to fulfill that right and that obligation to its students. And I think the other thing that Rob's been talking about is public safety. Increased funding for public safety. One of his proposals is an emergency fund. So when cities like Oakland are being forced to cut police patrols and cut officers on the street, that they can access this fund so they don't have to do that. I mean, that's the one thing that people are telling us almost at every door. I want to keep my street safe. I want my kid to be safe when my kid walks to school. So increasing public safety and increasing funding education so we can get out of this. One last thing before we get off this question. Maybe it was 2011, I went up with Rob to an event in Sacramento, and we went to a high school, and I think it was West Sacramento. And on one side of the street was this beautiful building, and it was a prison. Brand new, fancy windows, barbed wire, fancy brick, and on the other side was a school that was crumbling and was not given the maintenance that it needs. That's the problem with our state right now. We're spending all this money for fancy prisons and not spending enough on our kids.